Good evening and welcome to the Community Preservation Committee meeting for August. This meeting will be conducted live and by remote participation pursuant to the executive order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law signed by Governor Baker, taking effect March 12, 2020, and subsequently extended through March 31st, 2025, under Governor Healy. Join the meeting online is meet.google.com/WQR-UMNI-EDJ. And you can also join by phone, calling 539-302-9988 with a PIN of 492-337-282#. Which I always feel funny reading that part or announcing that part, because if they're not in the meeting, how are they gonna know? But whatever. That's how we've been doing it, so I did it. Do I have a motion to open the meeting?
So moved.
Seconded. Okay, we will do a roll call since we are on remote participation. Larice?
Here.
Bob?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So the meeting is open. Chairperson's report. My first meeting as chair. I don't really have a report, although I do have a little bit of a treasurer's report, which I sent out literally after I arrived in the room, so you may or may not have seen it on your. Well, no, I sent it out before I left home without the attachment, so. It's just a couple of pages, we'll walk through it. Nothing earth-shattering in it, just some updates on spending and some questions that we will be following up with the town on. So then I will turn over to the administrator. Barry, do you have anything you want to fill in detail?
We don't currently, but we will have a new member from the Conservation Commission. He's just waiting to get all his paperwork in order so that he can be sworn in. So he will hopefully be here at our next meeting.
Who is it?
It's Rodney Bender. He's also a new Concom member, I understand.
Okay, so hopefully he'll get sworn in. Anything else, Barry?
Not that I can think of.
Okay, so if we can throw up the treasurer's report, which is gonna,
No, I'm gonna have to, you wanted, let me see.
I'm not in there, so I
Okay,
can't.
let me see if I can do this on this computer.
In the past, if I sign in from this room, we get all that background noise, and so it never seems to work
Oh,
right.
wait a minute, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm getting there, bear with me. Okay. That should be coming up. You do see it? Yeah. Okay, it's not coming up on the main screen here.
You gotta return to home.
Treasury report, August 7th to 7th.
Yeah. Return to home screen, is that? Yeah, so I think it's coming up here
But
now.
then if I switch back, it's not gonna show it on the screen, because it's in my computer.
Right.
But can't you share your screen?
I did, but it's, for whatever reason, it's not coming up. Wait, let me think about all this. Present,
Yeah,
There you
there
go.
we go.
oh, okay, here we go. That worked, okay.
Okay, so
Okay,
that's the cover. We'll just flip to page 2. There's really 3 or 4 slides. We're gonna take a quick look at FY '24 operating expense, the admin expenses. I did get a report from Biz to update that, as well as the projects in progress. We'll see what the spending on those projects are, and we'll have some discussion there on the whole issue of the sunset clause and where some of that stands. Has not yet been totally solved, but we'll at least have an update so everyone's on the same page. Quick summary of the projects that were submitted to town meeting. Obviously, 6 out of the 7 were approved, and we'll talk about some of the next steps going on there. And then I broke down the Cape and Reynolds Dog Park and Gardens, really for you, Rich, as much to look at the money that's been spent and the money that's been encumbered. Because I know there's some concerns, we need to resolve some of that spending, so I added that in and said we could take a look at it. Next page there, Barry. So again, same format we've always used for the CPA operating expense. The key here, we underspent. We had a budget of $52,457 for the administrative expenses, and we spent $27,569. Obviously up a little bit from the last time we looked at it, because we had another 4 or 5 months of activity, because I think it was back in March when we looked at it. Down below that, you see the debt service, the principal, the interest, pretty much in line with the budget. I've highlighted a number here, the $320,000, which is the band payoff on the railroad depot. I don't understand. I'm waiting to hear back from the town, from Biz, as to why it didn't show up on the report in Munis, but they assured us in the past that it was paid off last year after we approved it, so, and it was built into the budget. So I left it here as an item. We'll follow up. It's just, we know it was paid off. I showed it as being encumbered because it isn't in the report, but you know, we have the usual too, little advertising, little bit of supplies, dues and subscription, which I think the new dues and subscription for the current year or for the upcoming year is on the agenda tonight, Barry.
Yep.
So we'll see that, but not really a whole lot to talk about here. So we'll go on to the next page. Barry's making a note. Whoops. Okay, so this becomes a bit of an eye chart because it's got the 24 projects that are currently in progress. And let me just talk generically. At the top, the 7 projects are highlighted at the top. Those are the projects that are more than 3 years old that the town put on hold because of the bylaw that was passed in 2023's town meeting that said all these projects had to be sunsetted after 3 years. And the whole issue with bond council in the town, I'm still grappling with that. But those 7 projects, we're not allowed to spend any money on at this point. And a couple of them are things we need to deal with. They're not necessarily of immediate concern, but between now and certainly next year's town meeting, we'll have to deal with them.
Is it possible to magnify this a little bit?
Yeah, we can probably blow
Difficult
that
to
up a
read
little
from
bit.
here.
Because I did want to kind of show a couple things. You know, the top line, the Glen Echo acquisition, we've got $73,000 left on that project. The only thing I'm aware of that is still open on that project is the recreation restriction. So at some point, we're going to have to pay a bill for that. We are either going to have to, and this is what we will work out with the town, I don't know the answer, if they can find a way to reopen this, if you will, or we'll have to put in another project for whatever the correct amount on that will be when we know it. The Glen Echo recreational facilities pretty much closed out. There was only $647 left on that particular appropriation. I don't think that one is of concern to us. Cape and Reynolds Farmhouse Security and Rehab. I mean, it's a project that was approved, in 2015 for $32,000, but we've never spent any money on it.
That's correct. And we did spend $9,729 on storm windows, which we purchased under 10 grand, which meant that we didn't have to go out to an elaborate bid process. Those windows are in the house, but haven't been mounted.
Yeah.
And they came unpainted. Originally, the Norfolk County Sheriff's Department had painted the house twice.
Yeah.
And during that original funding in 2015, we fully expected that the Norfolk County Sheriff's people could do it again. they have never been able to muster a crew
Yeah.
or get people they felt trustworthy enough. And so our plan was to have the painters from the sheriff's department paint the windows, and we would install them with the town's carpenter, Arthur. We have one installed, which we installed as a sample. And so that's the reason why we didn't spend any more money, because I was afraid that if we couldn't get the house painted at no cost other than materials, paint and,
Yeah.
you know, that sort of thing, we might be in a bind in terms of the total monies for the work to be done on the house, which included painting, windows, heating system if we could afford it,
Yeah,
and some lighting, security lighting. The term that was originally given to that particular funding, which was a non-borrowing article at the time, was the Cape and Reynolds Farmhouse Stabilization Fund. That term is incorrect. The security and rehab is incorrect.
Yeah.
It was called Stabilization Fund. And that's how it was presented at the annual town meeting in 2015. So from just being correct, that should be changed to that particular article.
I'm
title.
guessing, Barry, you may not know, but that probably just came off the CP3, so it may be the way we put it in that way.
So, right now.
But that shouldn't be an issue, that's not a real concern to me.
No, but that implies rehab means, that's a big word.
Yeah,
And that's not what was intended with 20, whatever the amount was, 32,000.
32,000, so it'd be
Right.
23. I misspoke, I said we hadn't spent money, we haven't spent money in a lot of years on it, so.
Correct. And we were getting ready to do, I actually got a verbal quote to have the place painted under prevailing rate. And that came in at 28,000 a year ago, because there's a lot of work there. So unfortunately, as much as we have tried, myself, Dave Sheehan, who works for the Norfolk County Sheriff's Department and has some input, as well as Joe McCrisky, who has a strong connection with that department, have been able to do anything, which is pretty much across the board for outside painting people.
So I guess there becomes two options with it. If we can hold off and see how the town resolves the sunset issue, which could conceivably free up the $23,000
Yep.
in anticipation of having that money to spend.
Right.
If we thought we could do,
We can do some more.
or we could basically create a new project for what we really think we ought to do and present it with all the right updated costs and
Right.
just move forward with that.
Right. Yes, absolutely. The only other option is to get some volunteers to paint the windows, and we'll install them with the help of the town carpenter.
Well, yeah, that's an
That-
option in
that's
terms
an
of the
option,
project, but
right.
from the CPC perspective, that's a great thing because it doesn't
Right,
cost us
right.
any more money. But
So that's been on,
right now, we can't use that cash.
right, and quite honestly, I can't believe we're in this bind, because in that language of the sunset law, there was nothing about retroactive.
Understood. That
And-
is the issue.
Yeah.
And
So,
unfortunately, bond counsel interpreted it that way, and bond counsel basically threatened to withhold their recommendations, which would be very bad
Catastrophic.
news for the town. So we
I
kind of have to
understand
go
it.
along with it at this
Right.
point.
So-
But I believe they're still working on
You're
it.
preaching to
So,
the choir on that.
yeah,
You're
Yeah.
preaching to the choir.
I know,
Again.
but I just wanted to say it.
at some point, we either hopefully free it up and you can complete something out of
Right.
it, or we look at the whole thing as a new project.
That's fine, I'm willing to go do it again. As far as the second item on the Cape and Reynolds Recreation, that 152,000, we won't need that.
Which is good.
Right.
Yes, obviously,
Um,
thanks to the work you've
that's the
done
good
in
point.
securing other funding.
And I'll stop there, only because you already said you were gonna talk about that.
Yeah, it'll come back up
Okay,
on
good.
another. The railroad station, again, not a lot of money left on it. Rehab fire station, there's a lot of money left, but we haven't done anything in a few years. I don't think we've ever closed out the project in our own mind,
That
so.
needs to be closed out, I believe.
If we're gonna close it out, then there really is nothing to worry about going forward. And the ancient documents preservation can be closed out.
That's, the paperwork's already been signed.
Yeah, the next railroad station one can be closed out, the 75,000, because we spent all the money. The two projects that they did go ahead at a June meeting of the select board and extend for us, and I believe they extended them, that's an answer I'm waiting from the town on, but with the Glen Echo Recreational Facilities, the supplemental. That one, there's still the issue of whether we have 81,000 or 5,000. We're still going through that more as a matter of principle, because I want to know how much money we really have on it, but probably gonna end up needing to close that one out, but again, we'll wait and see what happens with it. We have another year to work on that one, but I don't really like working on old projects. I like working on new projects, so I want to get us focused that way. And the restoration of the antique fire engine was extended as well. And as we saw at last month's meeting, that's in pretty good shape, and Joe's got that well under control, so not an issue. Can you pull up the page? Then we've got the projects really that were approved in 2022 and later. They were not yet affected by the sunset law, but the 2022 projects are gonna come up at the end of next year. So they're gonna create another round of headaches, potentially. The multi-court, we're gonna talk about that tonight, so I'll move beyond that. And I think the next couple, the land acquisition for Atkinson Ave, probably is getting close to be ready to close out, Barry?
Yeah, that includes what we're gonna be spending for the conservation
Yes.
restriction. So I believe that's the only item left.
And there's money there, so we should be in good shape with that. The West Street bond, it looks like, Dwight, that we've got $2,000 left there, but I don't think we need that, so I think did we also sign papers for that to close out? So we need to push that one through?
We need to close that one out. Well, I mean, the new process is going to be, they go to the town meeting to get closed.
Yeah, well, that's still an open issue, thank you for bringing it up, with Biz, that she had wanted us to go back and, as a regular course of events, when we close project, go back to town meeting and really get the approval to close the projects, and then she can shut them off in the system. That's a good thing for us, because then they won't be hanging around forever, and it helps us to enforce that timeline. And then, obviously, you get into the 2023 projects, which, the other point on this slide, coming down, I'm not gonna go through those individually, because they've all pretty much started in some way, shape, or form. But if you look across the bottom of the page, of the 24 projects, they were approved for $5,687,000, if I can read that right. I can't
Yeah,
see
that's
it.
about right.
We spent on those projects, we only spent $172,609 in fiscal year 2023. We did spend $495, so obviously there's a lot more activity, mostly on the fire station and then the 2023 projects. So they're probably off to a slower start. There was over $2 million worth of projects approved at that meeting, and probably $350,000 spent out of that. So they're getting off to a slower start than we would have liked, but at least they're moving along.
Question, how is this slow start compared to other years prior? Was there similar slowdowns in getting projects underway?
I think we've always had this kind of a slow start. And one of the points I want to make with that is, a lot of these projects came into us as urgent requests that had to be approved for town meeting, and then it takes a year and a half to get going. So
Yeah.
I would recommend we keep that in mind when people come to us with urgent projects this year. That if you're not ready to start, we really shouldn't be going ahead with it.
Right. A correlate to that is, the sunset law says, what, 3 years?
Sunset
Perhaps
law
that's
is-
not a practical time frame, considering the history of getting projects approved and then underway.
My point, I don't want to approve them 2 years before they're going to start.
Well, the thing is, we don't know how long it takes. My experience with the Capon Farm, it was approved in the 2015 town meeting for the fiscal year 2016. Nothing happened for a year and a half. I don't know if that's typical or atypical.
I think it was typical, my point. I
Okay.
don't want it to be typical. And by the way, whatever resolution comes out of the town does have the right, and one of the issues was whether it was the Board of Selectmen or the CPC, because it's gotta be approved by the CPC to expend it. But we have our own 3-year sunset law that went into effect before the towns. So we were already anticipating trying to get these done quicker,
Right.
with always having the right to extend them.
Right.
So there will be a provision in there that either the CPC or the town will be able to extend beyond the 3 years. We're not gonna tie our hands to mess up the projects.
Okay.
But at the same time, in order for us to truly manage our funds, we should be pushing people to say, okay, are we really ready to go ahead with this year? Because what's ending up happening to us in the past, we go in with an estimate, it takes 2 years to get going, and already we're underwater. And then we're scrambling, 'cause-
Behind time and over budget.
Yeah.
Usually, because of inflation. or
That's
just-
what I mean by, yeah, the underwater, because, so really, we gotta get more shovel-ready type projects.
Yeah.
Or not be approving them until then, it's in our own best interest.
That
But we're
takes
not
a-
gonna make a rule that ties
No,
our
but I
hands
mean,
in.
that last comment requires a crystal ball. Like, as, when we approve this, regardless of when you approve it, whether it's an urgent request
Yeah,
or a standard request, getting it ready to go, find the contractors and get them to do the scheduling is unknown.
okay. It can be managed.
It
and-
can
and
be, I'm sure, but I
If
think,
we're managing it, we put together a timeline and say, you know, you're gonna be approved in May, you'll have your money July 1st. You know,
Right.
tell us what you're gonna do between July 1st and December 31st to start the process. And if you've
Yeah.
done those things and the project takes longer, then obviously we'd be very willing to keep extending it. But if
We
we
being the
get to the
CPC.
next year and you haven't really done anything to start the project, that's a concern.
I think, I agree with you there, but I think a lot of the issue is regarding the engineering department in the town of Stoughton being able to handle the volume of projects, and they're gonna prioritize, obviously. And so suddenly, a project that's low dollars and not prioritized gets pushed
Town
aside.
has to work with us on this. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all in the same place. We all
Right.
wanna get the projects done.
So I think maybe we, as a committee, has to be more in touch with the town engineering department.
Great point.
Yeah?
Yeah, and,
Right.
and their feedback is, listen, we're tied up for the next 6 months, this project is not a priority, so don't even think about it. And if they had that input on some of these, then maybe, you know, the timeline would be a little bit different, so
Right.
that's a great point.
And a good example is Cape and Farm and Glen Echo were approved the same night.
Yeah.
Glen Echo obviously took priority because we had already spent $1.2 million to buy the property. And so engineering said, sorry, guys, we're busy. You know, I mean, so that could happen to any project.
We need the partnership with the town, there's no
Yeah.
question, but.
I will say, this experience that the Cape and Farm had has been resolved because now they have assigned the junior engineer, Nick
Yeah.
Dufresne, to the project, and he is on it, like a hound dog.
Okay.
And it's always, I communicate with them at least once a week.
Remember,
Okay.
too, some of these projects are coming from the town.
Right, but
So
I
the
think,
town should be able to prioritize them up front, and then, you know, things change.
Yeah.
Things are gonna change, and
Okay.
we'll always be able to do the extension.
I think projects that start from a outside committee or group, like the Friends, and Conservation started initially, is that it tends to get prioritized for all those obvious reasons. And what are you gonna do? They can't do it because they're busy, so you try to hire it out, and they're busy, you know, to a private engineering company. So those are the things that we need to look at and try
Yeah,
to
and
work
they
with
become
town
a
engineering. They're more sensitive to that more now, definitely.
No, I think we're saying the same
Yeah.
thing. I mean, there's no simple one-size-fits-all answer here,
For certain,
but
for certain.
Anyway, in the projects, and I will point out on the community garden ones, because we're gonna look a little bit more detail, you see that we spent $42,995 in the current year, in 2024, and they've now encumbered 420. So basically, they encumbered the balance of the project,
Right,
which only means they've either signed the contract or, but I wanna show you the detail that's behind that. It may make more sense to you than it does to me, because
okay.
it's a bunch of numbers, but that's why I added that in. So any questions, concerns on the projects in process? And I'm sorry, vital record preservation on the bottom was not on Biz's list of projects that are inactive, but it's actually the oldest of the projects, because it dated all the way back to 2013, with no money being spent, but we need that $20,000 because we have a supplemental project halfway down the page somewhere for an extra $35,000. with the transition of the town clerk's office, we need to find out if they really even wanna go ahead with it, and we'll follow through. Again, it's not an immediate concern tonight, but
And that was Stephanie Carrara's project.
it was two town clerks before Stephanie.
Right.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Thank you.
Now our third, will be our third town clerk. because
Yeah.
originally
Yeah.
by the clerk before
Thank you.
Stephanie.
Yeah, and then Stephanie finally picked it back up, and we tried to get it going, and they did spend $8,000
Yep.
in the past year. That's the Co-File, was it the name of the
Yeah,
company I
Co-File,
think they
yeah.
spent money with this year? So now that we've spent some money, we really gotta figure out, and if they're gonna go ahead with the full scope of what Stephanie wanted, then that 20,000 becomes kinda like the Glen Echo at the beginning, that we need to free that money back up, or they need to put in another project.
So that profile, but that doesn't show up on these?
It does. If you look at project 10700, about 167 lines up from the bottom, preservation of town of Stoughton, vital records,
Okay, all right.
the 8,063,
Yeah.
that was the one payment that I saw going through to Co-File. Out of the 35,000.
Do we know what that's paid for?
Specifically, no, but I mean, Stephanie had kind of walked us through with the person from Co-File about what they were working on, and that, there was only one payment in that amount that I saw in the system.
I think there were actually 3 payments, but the biggest one was, close to that 8,000. I think it was all part of the same piece of work that they were doing. I don't know the details exactly.
Yeah, there's only one payment. I just looked at that before the
There's only
meeting
one?
to see what the 8,000 was.
Okay,
There may be a description in there of what they were paying for, but
okay.
But if that's part of an ongoing process where they made arrangements with this company, and this is step 1 or 2, and step 3 and 4 and 5 are in the works, or not, that's kind of a thing I'd be very interested in. Is there another step about to happen that's already been planned?
well, there may be, and that's not on hold, so we're okay with that. We have the $35,000. So there is time and room there. I mean, I would hope there's more work going on. I mean, unless it totally stopped with Stephanie.
Yeah, the question is
So we want to follow up and get that moving again, I guess, is the one thing.
Yep. I need to contact the clerk's office and find out whether somebody else has picked up that ball and is still running with it.
Okay, so any other questions on projects in process, or? Next page, Barry, is the 2024 annual town meeting summary. This is the schedule we've all seen. Barry had produced it with a lot of great detail, so I just wanted to memorialize it here. It shows all the dates and votes and amounts. 6 of the 7 projects, just the West Street Barn renovation, unfortunately, was the one project that didn't make it through. These projects will be getting set up, Barry, on the CP3 in the next couple of weeks, I guess, because that's early September, right?
Yep, I think actually they've already been set up. in the
Okay,
73.
well, that would have been you, so.
Right,
And typically, these descriptions are probably close to what you use. I don't know if you necessarily follow them exactly, but that's how they get into the system that way for the description you were referring to. And once they're in the CP3, we'll show that, and if there's any questions, it's the kind of thing much better to address up front when we're putting them in.
Definitely.
On these projects, I did want to have, and I'm going to surprise Barry with this, although I know he's up to speed because we talked about it earlier. The next step is really the MOUs. And I know with MOUs and grant agreements, and we've got a couple of them signed, a couple of them in process, a couple of them chasing down, but do you want to run through those, Barry, and just tell
Sure.
people what's happening?
Hebrew Senior Life is something that is being negotiated. Part of it is, we talked about at the last meeting, when the payment is gonna be made. The committee made it clear they didn't wanna pay the entire thing
Up front.
upfront. So what we were going to do was have a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 on the building permit, at the construction loan signing, and at the end when the certificate of occupancy, the last certificate of occupancy. So Deb was saying that whatever doesn't get granted by the closing, they have to cover by paying the interest on that amount. So what we agreed on was that we would pay the first two payments at the construction loan closing and hold a third of it for the final, what do you call it, a certificate of occupancy. And I think that, and to me, that honored what the
Yeah, no, I
committee
think
talked
that-
about.
That kind of got it in between, the construction loan closing would be kind of in between the first two dates we had picked out, so it's kind of a fair compromise and it works for them and seems reasonable for us to do. We didn't have this conversation with them, so I think they were a little bit caught by surprise when we said, yeah, no, we're not really anxious to give you the money up front.
It's 1.3 million.
Well, again, it's a,
Yeah.
they got $50 million, most of it being borrowed from someone else, so that 1 million isn't necessarily make or
Yeah.
break to them,
Yeah.
but it's important to them, but it's not gonna make or break their ability to move forward as long as they have the commitment to get it. So,
Yep, so that's in progress, and so that, I'm going to present to the committee that new schedule of payments as part of the agenda later. The historic site signs, Dwight has signed all the paperwork, and that is good to go. The Stoughton Youth Baseball field improvements, there were some corrections that needed to be made in the document, and I'm waiting to hear back from Stoughton Youth Baseball on that. Marks Field, we just got a signed copy from them today.
Yeah, so we'll
once
get
that's
that.
signed by Michael and the finance director, that's good to go. Stoughton Motel conversion, just want to point out, we're last dollar in on that one. So, although I'd like to get it off our plate, there are some people who are on vacation and they understand they're gonna get it to us, hopefully, within the next month or so. But they're not under any gun, because again, that wouldn't be paid till the last
yeah,
unit is finished. And Bird Street Conservation Area, that's all done, it's all signed, and they're good to go.
so we're in good shape with those. Thanks, Barry. So then the last page that I had here is really just a list of the project Cape and Reynolds Dog Park and Community Gardens. And what I did is I pulled out the line items to show what the, Barry, if you could make that bigger too, I think it will help. The $42,995 is made up of what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 payments? And you can kind of see it's Warner Larson and Maltby, a little bit of a comment.
Yes, first of all, Warner Larson's payments are being paid for by the Stanton Foundation for a total of $25,000, which they submitted to us back in, I believe,
Well, they're being covered by the money we're getting from Stanton. Stanton's not paying Warner Larson, right?
let me rephrase. Stanton Foundation granted to the town of Stoughton $25,000 for services to be rendered by the Warner Larson
Yeah.
landscaping, architectural landscape company. So everything they're doing from concept to final completion by Warner Larson came from that funding,
Yeah.
$25,000. So all the payments are coming from that particular separate account, which I am actually having a meeting with Mary Jane,
Okay,
the treasurer, accountant. She's retiring soon.
yeah,
So I got a call yesterday from Fran Brutinetti to meet with her and Mary Jane to sort that stuff out. So the $25,000 that is given to us by the Stanton Foundation is covering Warner Larson's services. In
Okay.
addition to that, Stanton Foundation gave us a capital grant prior to us signing the contract with the contractor for $213,586, I believe. So, and the Conservation Commission, Stoughton Conservation Commission, gave us a grant
yeah,
of up to 30,000 for specifically the dog park. So between the 213,000 from Stanton and the 30,000 from the conservation, we have the amounts needed to finish the dog park.
project without
Right.
that other money.
The
Yeah.
463 and the 50,000, 463 from town meeting of 2023,
Yeah.
and the 50,000 from the Friends of the Cape and Reynolds Farm is for general use of the entire project. Because we have all those monies, The sunset law that affected the balance that was still pending from the original funding, we won't need it.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Which is a
Saved
good
us
thing.
a
On the
potentially,
line item, Malpe and Company, at 23,520,
yeah,
we did have to add to that about $3,000 for additional trees that had to come down, because they're in the way.
Yeah, you had talked about
That was
that.
funded through the general funds for the whole project,
yeah.
the 463.
And that conversation, not to cut you off,
No,
the conversation with MJ, either keep me informed or if you want, and maybe I can be part of that conversation too. I would have thought, you know, you got the check for 25,000 from the Stanton Foundation. I
Yes.
would have expected to see a credit in the account here, so probably a different source than API, but a credit for 25,000, which would then roll through the report.
what does API mean?
That's just their accounts payable.
Okay,
That's an accounts payable transaction.
that's the reason I'm meeting with the accountant.
Yeah.
Because between the transition of the accountant, the new
We
treasurer,
gotta find out where they put that money.
and the monies didn't get allocated to individual accounts. We have the 25,000 for the landscape architect from the Stanton Foundation.
Yeah.
We have the 213,000 change from the Stanton Foundation. We have 50 from the Friends, which is general use
Yeah.
of the project. We have 30 from conservation, which is, their language specifically said for the dog park. It should have been general, but
Yeah.
too late. So we're gonna sort that out this week and get those accounts properly assigned and expenditures properly assigned. So these are all the right numbers, but they're just not allocated properly.
Well, no, these numbers are correct. I'm confused, not by what you're saying, but it almost, and maybe because municipal accounting requires them to handle these kinds of things differently than what we would have done in a normal business, which would have been just, you pay the bills out of this account, you put the credits in this account, all the transactions are lined up together, we can see what the net total is, which is ultimately what we care about.
Right.
But I know you had shown me some stuff from your last conversation with MJ, and they made reference to some other
Yeah.
accounts, so.
So we're still trying to straighten
Yeah.
that out before Mary Jane retires, which I think is the end of the summer.
August 27th.
Okay, so I'm meeting with her shortly.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good.
It's unfortunate, we have multiple sources of funding specific for portions of the project, and it just
But that
works
should
that
all
way.
come
But
together.
the good news
It
is.
could show up as a different source in that column, is all it really would amount to.
Exactly,
Absolutely.
and we're gonna sort that out this
But it
week.
would be in the same account, it would be in the same
Right.
place, it would be in the project, without having to go chase it all over the place.
Well, one of the reasons is Stanton Foundation insists that the monies they gave us for the construction,
Yeah,
hard costs of the construction, have to be allocated, and so the contractor has to say, we did X hours on the dog park, we did X hours on the other part of the project, and they have to give that to Brutinetti, who then has to report to Stanton Foundation on a monthly basis to be in their good graces. So she's got her hands full.
and they can do all that offline over here.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they've let some of that issue complicate what's in Munis.
Yes, or
And it may be
confuse
the
it.
only way they can make it work.
Yeah, I was
I'm
gonna
not
say-
trying to denigrate what
Yeah.
they've done, but we'll get through it,
it's-
and I'll help you with
I
whatever
think
we
it's
need.
unusual because we have so many multiple sources of revenue assigned to certain aspects of the total project. So,
But anyway, if we can go down the page a little bit more, because I think that kind of covers it, thank you for that, Rich. And then, here's all basically the 420,000 that they've encumbered, and most of it is in this one line for Dandel Construction. I don't know if that's the amount of the contract. they
no,
put in.
the contract, I believe, was 645 total.
So they must have split that and put some here and
They
some
did,
into this
yes.
other account.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes,
Uh,
yes, they did.
And when they do that, I'll find out in Munis where it is, and we can bring them all back on one page, even if they're in different accounts, because this is just a separate recap of all the transactions.
Right, now, for example, on the second to last line item, 523, on the bottom, $2,500, the Friends of the Cape and Reynolds Farm donated $6,000 to the town to pay Warner Larson to do a concept project, which was 5,000 and change, just under 6,000.
Yeah.
So that was another source of revenue that has not been properly identified. We gave him 6 and then we gave him 50.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you know, Rich, what the top line for Dandel is? Does that represent
That represents a good portion of the whole project. That's basically the, everything but the dog park.
It sounds like they took the Dandel total and split it, someone here and someone
Right.
to this other place.
So that's the
Well, at the end of the
non-dog
day,
dog
it's-
park.
Yeah, the
Park.
414 is everything but the dog park.
Okay, okay.
You know, all the site work, the
Oh, yeah, no,
landscaping and all that
we don't
stuff,
need-
yeah, yeah.
We did-
To belabor the details there,
Right.
but
Yeah.
it
23
just feels like they've split it up in a way that's
Yeah.
making your life.
Maybe they can't,
it's
maybe
making
they
me
can't
crazy.
encumber outside funds and, you know, maybe they just need to add a column that says funding source and they can bring that in as well.
That's a great
so,
idea.
You know.
That's a great idea, funding source,
Yeah.
column.
Because if I looked at this project as a taxpayer, I'd say 463, wait a second, you know, you spent
There's
well-
all the money, yeah.
Right,
Right.
you know, wait a second here, so, yeah, so I'm sure they can work with you, or like you said, you can add a column and account for it.
Yeah.
Michael, what's POE and POL stand for? Do you know?
No, that's part of what I want to get out of business specific. It's basically some kind of purchase order and liability. When a contract is signed or a purchase order is generated, it creates the encumbrance.
Maybe purchase order expense, purchase
But
order liability.
As you see, from 23,000, well, the 8,400 down to the 2,975 lines up to the payments up above.
Right.
So when the purchase order or the liability is created, they create that entry, and then there's a payment too. So I'm not quite clear on why they would all be in there. But again, this is just detail being dumped out of the system. It rolls into the reports differently, but I did this because it all rolls into the one number we see on the report that we cared about, is that $420,000 is encumbered. And we will come back and have better explanations, and even if it's in another account, it's not gonna become another column, because the column for sources has multiple sources. But we may have another grouping of, okay, in this account, here's the rest of the activity.
Yeah.
We'll bring that all back together in a way that'll make sense, and we'll figure that out and you can work with MJ, and again, if you need some finance help to organize it better.
I'll tell you what, I'll include you on the email when I get the dates.
Yeah.
Maybe you and I can go up there together.
But anyway, that's the kind of detail that is available in the system. I mean, I kind of had to pull that out from a whole report of other stuff, details, to try to help us so that when we have a project, we can look at the expenses and see down to this level of detail.
Yeah.
And that was really all.
I was just checking to see whether that's the end of it. It is.
That is the end of my report, so.
Okay.
It even says the end.
Well, I do that just so we know, I know at the end. Yeah, there's nothing more coming.
I'm constantly being asked by engineering, do we have enough money, Rich? We had a change order, we ran into the ledge, and I had to, yeah, we have enough, above and beyond the stated quote that we got from the contractor. I think we had like 86,000 in addition to what the contract originally got signed for.
Yeah.
So, thankfully for those donations.
How to get this straight?
Oh, back to your,
I mean, the mouse isn't even working.
Okay.
your engine opinion, while the speakers and mic are unavailable.
Working when I did from this side.
So what? How's things, how you guys been? Been busy?
Good,
Mouse
yeah.
hit it again.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, the neighbors next door are great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a
Maria
good
and
one there.
Richard,
Yeah.
nice people.
Leave opinion, Bob?
They keep changing
That's me.
mowing companies. No one wants to do the backfield.
Yeah.
It's
that
not
looks
good.
great.
Okay, now we're back, we got everybody back on screen.
Yeah.
Now
And
we'll
Maria's,
move on.
she's crazy,
Any-
in a good
any
way.
Additional questions on any of what was in there?
Nope.
We kind of belabored it a bit. Project updates, update on Benson Road, I know John's not here, but he
John's
did
not
send
here.
you an update,
Yeah, that keeps getting
delayed, but.
delayed. It was, the closing now is scheduled for sometime later this month. I don't have an exact
Yeah.
date. I guess it was on the select board agenda and didn't get taken care of at one of their meetings, and I don't know what
Okay.
all about
And
this.
so you told John we'd have it on next month, so we'll,
Yep,
you know, it's moving along.
we're not gonna forget it.
It's hitting slow. Rich, I think we probably covered your Cape Reynolds update.
Well, I
Anything
do want
else
to give you an
want to-
update. I
Okay.
spoke with engineering today. I was at the site yesterday, and they're actually starting to do some landscaping. They've done all the site work. They found more boulders than I think the rest of town of Stoughton has. And some of these boulders are big as a Volkswagen. They built the platforms around trees to protect the trees, but also a place for dogs and people to sit
Yeah.
if they're not running around. They got the water lines done for both the community garden as well as the dog park. We did have 2 change orders, and that we ran into ledge in the proposed area near the barn, in front of the barn, where the parking is, and that had to be drilled and then taken out with jackhammers. And we had to make some changes to the electrical system because the panel's so old, the electrician didn't want to tie into it. And so the wiring was going to go down to the gazebo to provide lighting. The workaround was to abandon that and put in solar-powered lighting, which will be sufficient.
Yeah.
And we're actually adding some more lighting on the Pine Street side entrance because it was going to be kind of dark over there. In case someone's there when it gets dusk, it's dawn to dusk operation,
Yeah.
but from a safety perspective, we're going to be able to have plenty of lighting. It just won't be electric, it'll be solar. And the other thing is originally the Dandel Construction thought they could finish by early September. Because of these 2 hiccups, unforeseens, they think mid-September is their finish date when they can open.
That's still pretty good.
That's
Right.
still very good, yeah.
Yeah.
And take a walk down.
Oh, yeah, no, I want to see it.
I was down there yesterday.
I've seen several comments on social media, people are, what's going on at that house on Pine Street and stuff, and put out there, it's a dog, oh, when's it gonna, people are very excited.
I saw your comment
Yeah.
recently. You said a couple of months the other day.
Well, yeah, I didn't want to
I
commit
know,
to
I know,
September
that was
because I
safe,
wasn't
yeah,
sure,
yeah.
it was late.
Right, and you never know. I mean, anything can happen that will stop a job. The contractor and I were chatting, and they have been extraordinarily communicative.
Yeah.
They communicate all the time with engineering. They are really on top of things. And their fence guy, obviously they don't need the fence guy until they finish all the work inside. He's been overwhelmed with work, so he still hasn't got scheduled in yet. I think that's what they're extending their opening time is, to get the chain link fence around the dog park. That's basically the update as of about 4 o'clock this afternoon.
I think the town's gonna be thrilled with this when we get it, so we should probably think of a little ceremony for opening.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple, you know.
Want to give a chance to give you all the credit you deserve. for the
Well,
hard work
it's a
you put
team,
in
it's a
on
team
this.
effort. We do have, also, one other update is the signage for the dog park rules and etiquette.
Yeah,
We basically used a combination of the Abington Dog Park and the Wareham Dog Park, both Stanton Foundation
Yeah.
funded, as well as the East First Street Dog Park in Southie, which is terrible dog park in terms of no shade,
Yeah.
stony, concrete. But their rules are posted, and it's near Warner Larson's office. And he took a photograph of that. And he said, "Rich, give me a what you think is the best thing." So I used the best verbiage
Of all
from
three.
each of those 3 signs,
Okay.
and they're going to put together our town seal and make it look like a Stoughton sign. So that's underway now,
excellent.
anticipating opening day sometime in September.
And I have to ask, any sign for crediting the CPC and the other groups actually that?
I think we can do that. Stanton Foundation has very specific rules about how the dog parks that they fund is advertised or mentioned, and they have to be at the top of the leader.
Yeah,
So there's other signs that we can use for the rest of the park. And the engineering department suggested, why don't we just wait and we can do that outside the general contractors, because it's not part of this, it's not part of that scope. We can do that independent of the general contractor. And again, the engineering department here has been extremely helpful, and they talk to me a couple times a week.
good.
And they asked me, what do I think about the change orders? I said, you're the engineers.
Yeah,
As long as we get the same result, I don't care how we get there.
yeah. No, that's good. I am excited. My dog's excited.
Yeah, we should have an opening, that'd be good, you can have, coffee
Yeah.
and dog biscuits.
Yeah. I've already started talking to a couple of pet store, one down on 138 in Easton, and asked them if they'd be willing to donate
The bags.
baggy, bags and other paraphernalia like that, and so I'm gonna approach them again next week.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea.
Yeah,
So-
which is typical of
Most of the parks that I've been to, I've only been to a couple of them, but they usually have a
a
thing.
dispenser for the, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Um,
that's it. That's my update.
Great, thank you, Rich.
You're welcome.
Cedar Hill Tee Boxes, I know you were chasing Victor for some information.
Yeah, I thought he would be
Barry.
here, but he isn't. So, the project is finished. As far as I know, except maybe for some, details around the edges, but it's basically finished.
Yeah.
I was trying to get some more information in terms of, he had mentioned last time he was here, I think it was in April, about how having the CPA contribute to the golf course has allowed them to expand their customer base, or at least to grow it anyway. And so he said he had a report with showing the numbers and how the numbers of patronage has increased over the years since the CPA has started contributing. This project is the second of two projects, and the first one really gave it a jump start, and I just wanted
Par
to see
five
that.
and some other stuff that we did.
Yeah, so, but I will leave that on the agenda for next time.
Yeah, okay, good.
And,
Moving on then, Stoughton Depot, I think Paula's gonna call in probably in a half hour or so, so
Yep.
we'll defer that until we hear from Paul Jaffoon. New business, we have Halloran Arena supplemental funds from Matt.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for your patience sitting here.
No worries at all. So Matt Cochon, Recreation Director for the town. So I have in front of you the Halloran Park Multi-Sport Court Supplemental. So I'll start from the beginning. So this was approved spring of 2022 unanimously by town meeting. It all started back in the summer of 21. Senator Timblesy got us some money for street hockey boards. Town manager put together a subcommittee and had us go around to a couple different courts and check out what would be best for Stoughton. The committee decided to take what the town of Franklin had, which was like a multi-sport court, which is pretty much two basketball courts surrounded by street hockey boards. That worked well because of what we had with Halloran at Halloran Park. We had the space available with the basketball court now. That's it probably hasn't been resurfaced since you guys built it.
Yes, you're right.
So it was cracking, had some low spots, just old, beat up, and then we had that green space next to it. So we thought that would be a good spot for it. Engineering department said they'd do the design for us. Past town meeting, and then right after town meeting, town manager left, town engineer became the town manager, another engineer left. Long story short, the engineering department just couldn't get to it. Low staffed, and then there was other projects like Glen Echo and some other stuff that took priority. But at time they got around to it. So they actually did, they finally got around to it. Everything's designed, everything's permitted through the planning board. Everything that we needed to do was done. We then went out to bid in March, and then we got the bids back. We did get a couple companies that were interested. They did say, it was a relatively small project, not something too difficult to do. However, we did come in over budget. The thing driving us over budget really was the type of concrete that we're doing. This is a post-tension concrete. This is becoming the thing in a lot of towns. When we go to Mass Parks and Rec conferences, people are doing tennis courts, pickleball courts, basketball courts, all post-tension concrete. It's just shown that this type of concrete, this type of surfacing is just lasting a lot longer. And you're not putting in, every 5 to 10 years, you're redoing the surface. With these courts, it could be, 20, 25 years. So it's less downtime on the courts where you have to, pull the courts offline to repave it, do any work to it. And it's more money up front, but it's less money in the long run because of less maintenance to it. So that's what really drove up the cost. But again, we had the bid package done. That took a while. So everything's done. We're ready to go. We just needed the funds. I've since then been searching for other funding sources. I did reach out to Ted Phillips, and he secured us $25,000. So that will be coming to us for the project. And then the state as well has enacted a outdoor recreation fund. It's brand new. So I don't know when we can start applying for funds, but I've reached out to Ted as well on that to give me some details. And that's actually really, really cool. It pretty much takes you go and buy your kid like a baseball glove, takes the sales tax from that, and then it goes, instead of going into the state general fund, it goes into a fund for outdoor recreation purposes to redo parks, fields, trails, stuff like that. So I'm trying to figure out when we can apply for that. So this is supplemental. So I'm asking for CPA funding of $164,000. That does include contingency money in case it does go up higher. And what we will do if this goes to town meeting, I'll then work with Fran in the engineering department. We'll just throw out the bid docs again. We have everything all done. We can get it bidded out, and then we can hold a price for town meeting. And if that gets approved, we can just go. So that is all I have.
One of the things, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, well, one of the things I was gonna mention is we have this issue that came up before about the sunset bylaw.
Mhm.
And this is from 2022. So potentially the original funding could be expiring at the end of June of 2025.
Yeah, if it goes, for Springtown meeting. So is it, I could be totally wrong, but is it, because isn't anything over $250,000 is longer?
No, it's everything.
It's everything, okay. So I
So
missed that.
everything depends on how they try to straighten this out.
Yeah,
One good way of straightening it out would be to have a bylaw that exempt projects that have been approved within the last 3 years from the sunset bylaw. That's just rumor, it's not reality yet. If that doesn't happen, one of our options, I don't know if you remember at the town meeting this year, Stoughton Youth Baseball canceled the amount of money that they were awarded last year and rolled it into the new grant. And I'm thinking maybe if the bylaw is going to be in effect for the original $300,000, we might end up doing that with this.
Along those lines, my thinking too is we'll talk to Biz, figure out what makes the most sense for the town accounting department, whether it comes back as like the Stoughton Youth Baseball, here's the amount, and we'll get rid of the old one. That probably would be the cleanest thing for them to do, but they may or may not be able to do it within their system. So if we have two different projects, the concern would be with this one, they will be able to extend it because it'll expire in 2025. We could extend it extend it to 2026, and as long as we got the first $300,000 spent, there would be still okay if it was under two separate projects.
I see what you're saying.
But we'll work with Biz and figure out what the best way. But at the end of the day, we've got a court that's going to cost the $464 and explain.
Yeah. So here's a question. I don't know if this is to you guys or this is to the town. What if this were to go on the fall town meeting? Is that if it goes on the fall town meeting and then you either get work done depending on when the fall town meeting is later in the fall, or you get it done in the springtime, and then you save you're ahead of that deadline.
But we already have approval to spend $300,000. We don't need anything from fall town meeting to do that. This isn't on hold because it hasn't reached that sunset.
Yeah. But if we were, because correct. But I wouldn't want to start the project, have a
Without
hole.
knowing the second,
Or then have a hole at Halloran Park. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and not knowing whether the
Right.
next piece is.
Yeah, that's what I don't want to do is have something held up at the courts. Like
No, that is a good point. That is the
Yeah,
big
but I know what you're
concern.
saying. Yeah.
Historically, we've come to shy away from projects in the fall because fall town meeting tends to get a little bit put off by things that they think belong in the annual town meeting, and we don't want to jeopardize the project just because it came in the fall versus the spring. Personally, I think we should do it when we think it's the right thing to do, but if we're gonna do that, we need to make sure we've got enough people on board that we aren't creating a problem
Yeah.
for you. And I think if the town is fully on board and we come back and the town wants to do it that way, I for one would be okay. I mean, obviously it's a committee. We haven't had, I don't think we've had too many proposals that went into a fall town meeting.
No, the last fall meeting we had, they actually said,
Much rougher sailing.
But we did, but that might have been unique to that particular meeting too. so.
Well, there were a few things that didn't go well.
yeah.
So I think it's a question worth asking. I don't know how the rest of the committee feels. I would be okay, but it's up to the whole group. I have the same caution.
Yeah, because you don't want to go to town meeting and then have it get shot down, and then
Yeah,
what does that leave
right.
you?
And then you can't reapply
Correct.
in the spring. I have a question. You had this extra, you said within the 164, there was some contingencies. How much,
It's 20%. So it's 20% based off. We took, I believe it was the average of the two. So Hindings and Rad, I believe you guys should have this part. They're obviously the more close together, legitimate bids, and they were the ones that actually came out to the site. It was on the. I talked to Mark Tisdale about this. So we just took I believe it was the average of both bids, and then added 20% onto that. That was $474 or $398, and then I took off. The $25,000 of the state funding that we're getting to get to the 164 from CPA.
I would recommend that you put that 25 back in. If you don't need it, you're golden. And if you do need it, you got the funds to do it. The other nice thing is, I've noticed over the last several months that the cost of goods have stabilized and actually come down just a little bit in our business,
Yeah.
heating and air conditioning business. And I think things are settling. I mean, I used to call on a weekly basis on materials we use every day. I don't have to do that anymore. I don't see the trend changing much over this winter. So, as Michael said, fall meeting tends to be cranky. And sometimes they'll say only important emergency things are
Right.
gonna be used.
Yeah.
So you have to consider that as well, if something did come up.
Yeah.
The other thing I have a question is, the funding, about the sales tax on sports equipment.
Oh,
Put
the
into
outdoor
a
fund?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about that.
Okay.
We were told about it, the person who wrote the bill is, he's either state rep or rep, or, senator or a rep from the town of Sharon. He spoke to us at our Mass Parks and Rec meeting, told us about the bill. So I was doing some research online. It looks like it got passed. So I reached out to Ted Phillips to ask, like, hey, how does this work? How does the funding work? Stuff like that. He hasn't gotten back to me yet on like how to
Ted
reply,
Phillips
stuff
is,
like that.
like a
He's
state rep?
he's our state rep. He does, I think, like half of Stoughton.
Oh,
So if I get information, when I get information from him on that, I can send that over to you.
is the 25,000 the cap?
No. The $25,000 is
Separate.
not from that fund.
Oh, okay.
That is from the state. I don't know exactly where. The outdoor recreation fund isn't, I don't believe, set up yet.
Okay.
I don't know much details on
I
that.
think to be fair to town meeting, if that 25 is already approved and we know it's coming, we should show it as other funding on the product. 'Cause, I
Yeah.
mean, give Matt credit for going out and getting this stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
We can make reference to the fact that we may be able to get more, but we can't take that off the price now because there's no guarantees on that stuff. But we tell them, like you did, Rich, we're gonna chase this down.
Right.
And to the degree we're successful getting that additional money, we're gonna be underspent on the project. But we don't wanna cut it down to a number and then not get the funding and shoot ourselves in the foot.
Right.
But I also don't want town meeting to think we're hiding $25,000 from them either.
Good
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, so we'll bring it up like, you know, we got $25,000 from the state,
Yeah.
and this is what we're asking for CPA funding.
So that's still potential, it's not in the bag yet.
No, this 25.
The 25, I think is good.
25
I was saying
Yeah.
the outdoor fund was something else I'm looking
Oh,
into.
okay.
That's the
Yeah,
new one.
totally. 25 though is,
And you can talk about the other potential funding and what
Right.
you're gonna do to go get it.
Yeah.
I think those are pluses to the project,
Yeah.
but we can't count on that money.
right,
so.
yeah, I don't know any details on that
Yeah.
fund, I just know they created it for stuff like this.
I think it helps build a good story about
Oh,
what you're
absolutely.
doing to
Absolutely.
control costs.
What are you looking for as far as a time frame for that project?
Like when, if we got money to when it would get that built
Yeah.
out, it's not long. They said this is a pretty quick project.
Pretty quick?
I don't know exact timelines, but they were like it's relatively quick. There is some weather dependent stuff on like the concrete,
Okay.
but both contracts that came out were like this is a relatively quick project.
Beautiful. Okay, and the 164 pretty much is just the reevaluating and as far as the new concrete that you want to use for.
The
Future-
164, it's pretty much the difference because when we brought in this project it was really like 21, 22.
Yeah.
So it's hyperinflation. So we
Right.
were
Right.
estimating off of, you know,
Back then.
back then
Okay.
it just jumped up significantly. But the contractors were saying that is why
Major
you know,
contributor.
you're up here.
Okay.
You know.
When you say that the costing's gone up due to the concrete, is that because of the demand?
Not just the concrete, but
No,
also like it's everything else as well.
It's everything, but
Everything.
the
That makes more
concrete is
sense.
specifically pointed, is that because there's much more demand for high tension concrete now?
It's not the demand, it's the labor. It's like labor intensive. That's what it is. But a lot of towns are doing it. Almost every town I talk to is like if they can get post tension, they're gonna do it. Because like that thing should, if it's built right,
It'll
I'll be
last so
retired
much
before
longer.
it ever needs to be.
Mm.
Anything needs to be done right.
Franklin's
Franklin's
a
is
big
still
deal.
going strong, I live right near there.
Yeah.
Where is it?
And
Franklin.
Franklin's, the one that's
Yeah.
modeled after, is
Yeah.
still going strong.
And he, Ryan is the director in Franklin. I'm always in contact with him on this project. He actually looked over like the bid docs for us. He's been super helpful, and he's been pointing me in different directions for extra funding as well.
Along those lines, I think, before we go back to town meeting, even as part of the application, I'd like to see a timeline. Okay, we expect if we get the funding July 1st, that we'll be going out to bid August 1st, whatever the date is.
Yeah.
I'm not,
Yeah. My thing too is like if we come up to like a town meeting, I'd go to bid before town meeting, and then
Yeah.
you hold it contingent on town meeting approval.
Right.
So
even better, because
yeah.
then we
So
have a
then-
better
so
set
then
of
you-
numbers.
So then you
That's
just,
right.
so then you
But with
just
that
go.
timeline, and to answer Bob's question, you know, maybe we know 6 months, and it could turn into 9, but
Yeah,
if we're aiming
A
at
rough-
6 and we miss, that's okay.
Yeah.
a rough.
If we
timeline,
don't know what
yeah.
we're aiming at, we don't know how much we're missing by, so.
I can check with procurement to see if the first when we bid it out in March, if they did give us a rough timeline.
Yeah.
They might have done that. I actually missed the day. I was actually sick that week with COVID, so I missed the bid meeting. But I can ask like
Yeah.
Fran if they gave her any like timeline. She just did say like, hey, they were like, this is a pretty small project. Like, well, we can do it on the side and go, which was nice. But then they were like, yeah, this is
Right.
gonna cost more than what you think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your thinking now in terms of fall versus spring?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'd like to just have the money, get it done. You know, depending on when fall town meeting is, maybe you can squeak it on the fall. If not, you can go for the spring. I do get people a lot of asking me. I had a camp mom yesterday. You know, just checking on the status. Can't wait for it to be built, kind of thing. So, I think people would like to see it get done, but I think it's up to the committee
Well, I
and
mean-
town management as well. Mark Tisdale sent out a thing like a month ago, just holding spots for anything in the fall. So I did put it in just in case, like, hey, just as a place saver. I'm not saying that's definitely going to happen or anything, but just to put it on his radar. So I can definitely talk to town management, see how they feel, and up to the committee really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if this will, if you need to put in a placeholder for fall, we can always change it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dwight or Dawn, do you guys have any concerns with fall versus annual?
No, well, it's hard to tell.
there will be some general sentiment about, well, you asked for this and now you need more. I mean, there'll be just some of that, whether the difference between that and fall or spring is not clear to me. I just don't know on that one.
Yeah, again, I mean, it's Mark and Tom and you. I think generally, based on the experiences Barry's recounted, this committee has always kind of said,
Sure.
annual's just a better time frame to do it.
Yeah.
To Dwight's point, explaining the story of how it went from 300 to 464 is
Yeah.
gotta be a big part of what we're telling them.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I like Bob's point, the timeline, when we think we can get it done, so
Right.
people know.
Yeah.
And, we build in some contingencies on the timeline, just like we do on a budget. We're not shooting ourselves in the foot
Right.
and promising anything, because we don't control it all.
Right.
But if we don't have a specific deadline that we're looking at, so.
I agree with Michael. I think your job is to sell this with timeline and the explanation of why the increases, everybody knows the hyperinflation that we went through is now coming to an end.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you can do about it, not you or us,
Right.
it just is.
Yeah.
And I think everybody in town meeting would recognize that fact
Yeah.
and not make it a negative towards you, but you gotta sell the time frame.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. Time frame for sure. And
You're gonna be a salesman on this one.
time frame for sure. And I'll, like I said, I'll keep looking out for more funding and see how much more I can bring this down. Already excited we could get it down another 25,000
Be
and
nice,
see how much more we can go.
Well, regardless of whether we do fall or spring, the next step would be to submit a full application.
Yep.
And, I mean, it's subject to change depending on what happens with the sunset bylaw.
Right. Yeah.
But, and that would have the timeline
Right.
and the budget, which wasn't something that's required in the pre-application.
Yeah.
Do we have any idea when the fall town meeting is going to be?
I haven't.
No.
Heard, I haven't heard anything.
Or if there is
No.
going to be one, definitely?
They always say that. There's always
I
one.
know.
I think they should
They always
just,
say, well, there's nothing planned, and they always
Exactly.
happen.
it
Exactly.
shouldn't be special anymore, it should be biannual or whatever, it's
Exactly.
just,
Off-season.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, but we can
Okay.
count on it, that's for sure.
All right, so, we need a vote on accepting the pre-application.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to
Second.
accept.
Second.
Rich, second. Okay, roll call vote. Larice?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes,
Rich?
Yes.
Dwight?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So, now, thank you. This is another project that I think, like the dog park, it's just gonna be so visible and people are gonna love
Yeah.
it.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, and it's
definitely.
nice to like have people come to the office, like the mom can't come down, just like
Yep.
asking about it, like, hey, when's work gonna be done? Like, what's going on? Like, people are excited about it, so it's nice to see that.
Exactly.
And it's a nice venue.
it is.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really nice venue, and I have some counselors that play ball down there, so
Yep.
I just tell them like, hey, this is coming down the pipeline. They're excited, so it's nice to see like the community excitement for it.
Definitely.
I just want to get it done, like everybody else.
Well, it's very visible. The one in Franklin, the surface is painted this bright blue color.
Yeah,
So you really can't, and where it is, on Pierce Street, I mean, people
yeah,
can't not notice it.
That's
Yeah.
true. That's true.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you guys as always. Pleasure.
Welcome.
Thanks,
Thank
Matt.
you,
See you.
good seeing
See you,
you.
Matt.
I don't think we're caught up to Paul yet, so we'll move on to the Hebrew Senior Life payment schedule. Barry talked a little bit about it, but we'll go through it and take a vote.
Yeah, let me try. Should I try putting it up on the screen?
You can.
Let's give it a, let's see if we can do this. Hang on a minute. So I've already done this once, so this shouldn't take as long.
It's
I see it.
Okay.
got a return to home screen. It's like counting down, so 40,
I know.
39,
Oh, you know,
seems
that's-
like a long,
Can you, hit click, turn to home screen?
oh,
No, on the right, the blue one, under where it says call switch to another device.
oh, I had it close. It's never good at video games.
well, click on what's behind that drop-down menu. No, you have to switch it.
That is a strange way to get there, but,
Um,
and then was it share the screen, was it?
Oh, yeah, it's the one with the arrow next to the hand on the bottom.
The-
No, you had it, right next to smiley face.
Yeah,
Yep.
The mouse is kind of difficult to deal with. Go to window.
weird.
I don't think it lets you do it though. No, hang on, let me wait, let me see if I can do it from here. I gotta get the, hang on. Oh, okay, I figured it out. Wait a minute, I got it, it's coming.
Companion. There we go.
There we go, I figured it out. Okay, so, as I said before, I don't wanna rehash everything, but I modified the terms so that you can see in number 2, 2/3 of the $1.3 million get paid. And I did round up so that's a little bit larger than 2/3 get paid at the construction loan closing. And the final payment, which is slightly less than 1/3, will be dispersed when they get the occupancy permit for the last unit of housing. The other thing is town council, just in case, I don't expect it to happen, in case the ownership is sold or transferred, we just want to make sure that the affordable housing restriction is in place before that happens, so I put it into the conditions.
Yeah,
Don't
good
think
idea.
we'll have to have that, but it's just a
Yeah.
belt and suspenders thing.
Belt and suspenders is
So-
good on this stuff.
I just had a quick question on here. So, as far as the 868 is concerned, that's pretty much their responsibility to, we've done the closing document, we need to present that to the town, and then once that's signed off on, then, they'll issue the 868,000. Is that,
Actually, this is part of, this is a special condition for the grant agreement.
right?
So once the grant agreement is signed, and there's other stuff that we're still working on that's in negotiations,
Okay,
this is the special conditions to it. Once the grant agreement is signed, then that will control how the money is dispersed.
okay.
And this grant agreement has to be signed by Hebrew Senior Life, by Michael as chairman, and by the finance
By
director.
Biz. And
Okay.
then, you're right, when they close on their loan document, they've gotta come to us and say, okay, we've completed the closing, here's the evidence of that.
Okay.
At which point we would authorize.
Well, they've actually got to bring it to the closing, my understanding is.
Okay, so they'll come to us and say, we got this closing scheduled, here it is, and we'll have to cut them a check.
I believe so.
So we'll have to coordinate that very closely with the town, because last time we tried to cut a check to hand to somebody at a presentation to the kids at the school, it took 2 months to get the check.
Yeah.
Right,
So
well,
we
Biz is
will,
already,
that's good to
so
know. That's a great
what's the
question.
timeline for this?
Yeah.
And then just the other one, that other contingency, so if someone came in and they sold that property, what you're saying is through the deed restriction, they would have to have this in place before that sale could happen?
Correct.
Okay, so we're safeguarded on both fronts?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we need a vote as to whether this is
So
acceptable.
we have a motion to.
I'll make the motion that we accept these
Right.
conditions.
Second.
I'll
for the-
second.
Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Larice?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes?
Dawn?
Yes.
Dwight?
Yes.
The chair votes yes.
Great. All right, number 11, I've already emailed John Linehan, reminding him he needs to get sworn in. The next thing is our annual dues that we pay to the Community Preservation Coalition. It's $3,500, that's the same as it was last year, and actually going back to, I think, 2020. So that would come out of the administrative fund. And working with the coalition, they're definitely worth every penny of that.
And
Absolutely.
we're getting close, I think we're gonna kick in a year or two to a new level,
Well,
I
if
think.
we have local receipts that exceed, I think it's $1 million.
Yeah,
It goes up like about $800 above that.
yeah, well, it's, again, there's a set schedule, we know what it is, and I think it's a good thing because it shows that we're getting more and more money.
Right.
So do we have a motion? Any questions on it? Any questions on the payment? In case, do we have a motion to go ahead and pay the community preservation?
So
Coalition?
I'll make a motion.
Dwight?
Dwight?
I'll second, well, I'm either move or second, depending if you did.
Yeah.
I'll make the move to,
However, Barry
Accepted.
makes a note.
yep.
Yep, I got it. Okay.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Larice?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Rich?
Yes?
Dwight?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Okay, we have minutes, I'm only able to do May 14th.
Any questions, concerns, comments on those minutes that Barry sent out?
Michael had a typo that he found that I fixed. It was,
It was just a run-on.
it was something where there was two extra
Couple extra
words in the
words.
sentence.
Yeah,
I
the
deleted
sentence.
them. Not exactly what it is, but I know I fixed it.
Okay, hearing no discussion, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of May 14th?
Motion to approve minutes of May 14th.
I will
Second.
abstain since I was absent.
Okay, do we have a second? We're not voting yet, but
I'll
Larice
make a second.
seconded. We will do our roll call vote. Larice?
Yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Rich gonna abstain. Dwight?
Yes.
Dawn?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Okay. Okay. Any other anticipated new business or emergency matters? I am not aware of any. Anybody else have something that they want to bring up at this point?
No, I'm still working on trying to get conservation restrictions finalized. I've been emailing back and forth with Jerry McDonald on Concom, and he says he thinks they approved it. I said, well, if you did, send me a copy of it with the
Yeah.
signatures on it, so that we know for sure.
I'd like to make a comment that's totally unrelated to the CPC meeting. I've been appointed as a member of the advisory council to the Neponset River Watershed Association. And so I'll be the Stoughton representative. Stoughton has two watersheds, Neponset and the Taunton. And so I'm telling everybody, if you know anything about any projects that are coming up or should come up, or anything to do with any body of water, stream, brook, or temporary streams, send me a note. The association wants to be able to make all the citizens of Stoughton aware of our resources in that Neponset River Valley. We're in the East Branch, and it starts up by the Cape and Farm in Red Wing Brook and Gleneco, and it goes all the way to Bear Swamp. And so about just under a half of Stoughton land area is under the Neponset River Valley watershed. The rest is Taunton. And it's an exciting project. It's something that I actually tried to contact them 20 years ago, never got a call back.
Wow.
When I met with the executive director, Ian Cook, he said he was looking for an internship out of college, and it took him 6 months to get back to him. He said, so nothing's changed. So that's just my official announcement, and I want to talk with Dwight offline. I'll send you an email with some details, and I need your help in terms of finding out what names of brooks are, because they have 4 or 5 brooks out of 4 different ponds, all named Steeple Hill. And it doesn't make sense to me, and Conservation doesn't seem to know, and Conservation is fully on board.
Yeah,
So,
that's good. Congratulations, and I'm
Yeah.
sure you will bring to them all the good hard work that you brought to us.
well, we had a stream on Cape and Farm, so I took ownership.
If there's anything we as a committee can do, or even at some point, if you just want to educate us, I'd love to
Yeah.
hear more about that stuff.
Well, this is the plan, and I don't mean to take too much time, but in my interview with Ian Cook at the town spa over a beer,
My favorite kind of.
near the end of the meeting, he said, how can we make people of Stoughton more aware of this watershed? And I said, social media, it's free. And he said, oh, okay. Well, about a week after that interview, a friend of mine on Facebook who lives down in West Island in Fairhaven, he's a Mr. Kravitz. He knows everybody's business. He's a phenomenal photographer. He has a personal weather station, and he posts certain things. And 15 years ago, he posted a photograph of Buzzards Bay around Fairhaven and all the dangerous rocks that you should stay away from.
Yeah.
And he said, here are the rocks, and here's a list of the names. Match the name with the rock. Well, I've never forgotten that, and he did it again. He reposted that like 2 weeks ago, and I said, that's the answer. We'll put up a map with all the streams and bodies of water, and then say, match them. And if you have a personal story like about I caught my first fish at 6 years old at Harris's Pond, note it. And Ian said, great idea. So Dwight, I need to work with you on some of the names of streams that have no names according to what I've found so far. Even Open Spaces doesn't have a real complete list. And so-
Well, and it's important, you know, we did that at the rocks at Glen Echo. There were 3 or 4 rocks, Perch Rock, Drum Rock,
Right.
Fiddlesticks, so
It
we
is
may
one
have
of,
done that than you want.
Right.
And if we're putting a dock in at Glen Echo, which is in the works, we need permitting and we need, you know, just that we'll be in touch probably more with the state, because I think when Eric Coleman comes, we'll be asking for some money for both the dock, one thing, and maybe the shade pavilion on another. But that's just a heads up to what's coming down the road.
all right, that's good.
Sounds like an opportunity that maybe there'll be a hike with Dwight down to some part of the watershed.
Yeah.
Well, there's actually a hike with Dwight tomorrow coming out of Bradley Lesser Playground, where we're walking over to the quarries and the cellar hole at Bird Street, and we'll actually see some of the new driveway work for the parking that they're doing at Bird Street. So 9:30 out of Bradley Lesser Playground tomorrow, short, incredibly easy, and I know some of you are working, but if you're retired, come on down.
Maybe I will be in town tomorrow. So. Of course, I don't have my dog who I want to bring, but maybe I will. I've been promising Dwight for 2 years. I think that I was going to show up on one of these hikes.
Well, this could be the time. The Lord is leading you.
This could fit because I had an appointment tomorrow morning, which is why I kind of arranged it all here, and then that got canceled. So I do have free time. Just got to get out of bed, I guess.
All right. I see Paul is waiting.
Did Paul join? I saw somebody joined on there. Or?
So we're gonna go back to item,
So we're gonna go back to, what was it, item 8, update on the Stoughton Depot stabilization. Paul, welcome to the meeting, and can you just give us a quick update to where we stand and some of the things that have happened since we last talked? Can you
Sure, thank you for having me. Paul Jaffoon, Public Works Facilities, for those, just for the records. So thanks for accommodating me at this time. Yeah, since we last met, the physical progress on the depot certainly won't be noticeable, but all the behind the scenes stuff that needs to happen is ongoing in order for the town to make that a viable occupied space. I sent the committee a code review that our design consultants performed through their consultants. And it brought up a few more questions and, you know, what I consider to be minor obstacles before we can really move forward with any concrete plans or real restoration or you know, remodels of any of the spaces inside the building. Within that code review, obviously, three of the biggest components that we need to take care of while designing some of these smaller rehab projects are, you know, the local building inspections and building department, code review and inspections, the plumbing and the architectural access board, the ADA compliance, and of course, since this building is on the National Historic Register, the Mass Historic review of anything and everything that we would change or not necessarily change, but even do to the current space. So like I said, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that is happening and still has to happen before we go full steam ahead and really potentially throw good money after bad because of some things that we just don't know because we didn't know. And that's kind of the summation of where we're at right now.
So this hiccup in the project, how long do you expect it to last?
Well, excuse me, in order to get some good design documents and some real answers on things we need to do, we're gonna need to get in there and do some exploration, small demo exploration to find out some certain things. So that could take, at least a couple of months before we're even ready to decide what is or isn't viable.
Okay, and then from that point, what's the next step?
So from that point, depending on the funding we have and if we can rehab some portions of the building, we will or won't be able to undertake the small project that this committee has authorized. But again, we just don't know what we don't know right now at the moment.
And just as a reminder, I mean, to date, we've spent $24,716. We've got another $12,300 encumbered. So there's $162,000 remaining out of the $200,000. And
Yep.
Paul, I think I had said to you that Tom Coulter had mentioned to me that he was working with the state, trying to get some more funding. I don't know the status of that. I'm not asking, I don't know if you know the status of that, but hopefully some of that will come in and down the road we'll be at a point where we really can sit down and do kind of what we talked about originally, really get a good plan together, because this is just one of those things that's been out there for a lot of reasons. It's a big deal, and man, it would be great to get something done here as well.
Yeah.
Paul, I appreciate all the effort you put in, and we've gone back and forth on a bunch of stuff where sometimes the priorities, I mean, town staff is pushed in a bunch of different directions, and it's tough to keep up with, but Rich?
I can ask, if we take two things like the bathroom and the floor, are those both things that are waiting for, where are they on the list of things that would be done once these other hoops are jumped through or things are okay?
They wouldn't go to the very back of the line, but they wouldn't take priority over things like conditioning the spade, insulating the spade, if possible. Like I said, we would have to do some exploratory stuff. There's a stone exterior wall with wooden interior paneling. We'd have to get in there and see what type of systems to condition the spade that would or wouldn't be viable, depending on moisture being trapped, and certain things like that like everyone certainly made a good effort and really wants to get this thing going. But again, we did the right thing by hiring professionals, because they kind of protect us from ourselves sometimes by saying, hey, slow down, we have to ensure we do all the proper things so you get a great building and the town and the community get a great building and a great space and can really enjoy the downtown.
But it sounds like insulation or issues of insulation or wall innards is a priority. This is high on the list of stuff that's going to get looked at first.
So that would, along with some life safety stuff, depending on so it's going to be a community center, but how many occupants in that community center? What other uses are there going to be? Will will it need a sprinkler system? It definitely needs, fire protection, fire alarm system, carbon monoxide, better means of egress, lighted exit signs, things like that. So, again, the what may be considered smaller stuff is really the most important stuff for the safety of everyone, the building users and the community and the businesses, and the residents downtown.
So is it fair to say, Paul, that just simply going in and putting in even an ADA accessible bathroom is not really enough to allow us to open this to the public?
I believe at this point that is fair to say. That I would agree
And
with
these
that.
other things need to be considered before we could conceivably pass all the different codes that are out there.
Again, I would say at this point, to my knowledge, that is fair to say.
Paul, this is Rich Terry. You mentioned the Massachusetts Historical Commission's review. What does that involve, and how long does it take?
How you doing, Mr. Terry? Thank you. That process, it could be anywhere from 2 to 6 months, to be honest with you. Now, we've already done some of that with some of the roof and the roofing, slate replacement, and all the copper flashing and things like that. So that building is on their radar, I guess you could say. So like I said, it could be 2 to 6 months. What it involves is you gotta have design drawings and just apply and basically wait for them to get back to you and make any and all changes necessary in order to comply with what they need.
One last follow-up question. You mentioned fire suppression. It's my understanding that a building under 7,500 square feet does not require sprinklers. Does that apply to a public building like this? Or would it require sprinklers?
So, I don't know the answer 100%, but I think that for a commercial space, and I don't know if this would be considered a commercial space, again, it depends on how we or the town or whomever, I get the town, decides on the use of the building. So I can't just tell you yes or no. I guess there's more to it than that.
Okay.
Is that, if I can ask, but does that mean it's still available for sort of quasi-official, we had a couple events in there. We had the Sing last year where the little theater and the singers were in there, sort of rump events where it's not open for formal occupancy, but it's open for special events, Christmas programs or whatever. Is that still in play?
Yeah, Dwight, I'm not, I wouldn't make that call. That any time that that anyone wants to use that building for a particular event, I think the procedure is you'd have to go in front of the select board and either, I don't know if you need to apply or get a permit or you just have to explain, if anything, what your event would entail, and I think they would vote on it.
But there's nothing,
That's
nothing from
to me.
your end that's stopping it.
I'm sorry?
There's nothing from your end that's stopping it, other than the fact that we don't have a functioning bathroom. I mean, people aren't, if the selectmen say okay, then it's okay to have another program of some sort or other. That's what I'm hearing.
There's nothing from me that would stop it. There's also nothing from me that would say, go ahead and do it.
Yeah, it sounds like potentially the
It's
select
covering all
board could be
angles.
saying yes and taking on some risk to the town that they don't know about. If it's not really up to code for public use like that.
Well, there was a concern last year when they okayed it, where there'd been moderate amelioration to the floors, but there were still humps in there. So we did have the sing and an exhibit and whatever at Christmas time, but some people were concerned about liability, but then I think the selectmen voted for it and they got it, so.
Yeah.
The concerns are there, but the votes sometimes are there as well, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say either way how the board would vote on any use of that. I just know that nobody, not you, when I say you, I just mean anyone in general, wouldn't come to me for an approval
Okay.
or disapproval. That's not in my purview.
Okay, thank you.
But it sounds like, Paul, in your review with these,
DRA,
DRA,
yeah.
we're trying to identify the things that may cause the problem of we shouldn't do it or it's okay we do it.
I think the
So
building.
what we don't know is I think Paul's hesitation here.
I think the building inspector and the fire department would probably be the two agencies that would be able to best advise us.
You're right,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah, and I think that Paul's trying to pull, it sounds to me, Paul, like you're trying to pull all that together so that we know what the procedure should be to say, yes, Board of Selectmen, as long as the fire department and the building inspector say we're okay, then it's okay to do it with or without that bathroom.
And you can get a temporary bathroom,
And-
not just a porta potty, but something a little nicer for the occasion.
And if we need a bathroom to do it, then maybe we should go ahead and do the bathroom, but we'll at least know what those things are, as opposed to jumping out, spending money on a bathroom, finding out, oh yeah, you still can't use the building.
Right.
Then go spend money on something, oh yeah, you still can't use the building. We really need to figure out what we need to know that we don't currently know.
I think that's what Paul.
And I think that's what Paul's
was
trying to do.
Paul's center point.
So thank you for
Exactly.
that, Paul.
The other thing to keep in mind is,
Yeah, I think what everyone just said is a pretty good summary. And yeah, we're trying to find out what we can and can't do, or should and shouldn't do, or both. So it's safe for everyone, first and foremost, and not, never mind what this final place will look like in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 years, whatever it is, but just to get people in there, there's still a lot of information necessary that we don't have at the moment.
And to go back to Dwight's point, I assume Dwight would kind of like to be able to probably repeat last year's event at Christmas time anyway. So maybe.
Yeah, well, that was under that was initiated by Little Theater, and we just jumped in to be part of it.
Yeah.
But some of them like that. It worked very nicely and got supported by the selectmen and people. So yes, some event like that sometime along the way, I don't even know what it is, but that worked well, and it could well be again at Christmas time, something like that.
Yeah, so Paul, maybe a good idea that we kind of target maybe even a verbal update in October with the idea that can we get far enough along to allow that to happen again? I mean, I caught the tail end of that last year. It was a nice event.
Sure. I can promise the committee this, is that every time we have some information updated, that I will inform the committee, good or bad, we'll tell you everything we know when we know it. And I think that's the only promise I can make, is I'll keep you updated as far as we go. But we're not gonna just do something to do it, unless it's the right thing to do.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I would like to make the suggestion that we can start talking with the Board of Selectmen, the fire department, and building inspector in September for the Christmas event, and get our ducks in a row in terms of what they feel comfortable with. They're gonna say, what's the risk? And if we can show that there's no trip and fall accidents, and there's plenty of parking off street, we need a temporary bathroom, which we can procure quickly, then we can have a good plan of attack well in advance. We wait till October, pretty soon Thanksgiving's in the way, and things get lost in the shuffle. I think we should start right after Labor Day and push it hard to say that we want to do the same thing. Please help us get this voted through with the assistance of fire and building inspector.
So ask another question then. who should do that?
Yeah,
Should we
I was
reach
gonna
out to Dave Lurie, the Little House, Little Theater?
I would say yes. I mean, given the level of interest and initiative that he showed last year, that to see if he wants to do that, it would make sense to do it again, and I will help him. But I think he was the prime mover last year and might be again. If not, then it's a different story. I don't know exactly what would happen.
So Barry, can I ask you to reach out to Dave?
Yep.
Relay this conversation and say, you know, we're all looking forward to a repeat of last year with maybe something better. If we can get there and put in a bathroom because it makes sense. Paul's working his end to find out some of that answers, but Rich is right. It's October becomes November, becomes the holiday, and it's January, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, frankly, I don't see how we can put in a bathroom though, based on what we just heard. I mean, they'll like porta potties, but I can't, given with the limitations Paul talked about, I mean, I don't know what kind of bathroom.
Right, we don't wanna put in something that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
The other thing, just to keep in the back of our minds, is that one of the goals was to have this done by the anniversary of the town of Stoughton in 2026, I think.
Yeah, it's only 2 years away.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of confidence that that's gonna be something that we'll be able to do.
Well, but that goes way beyond the project of
Oh, I
200 grand,
understand.
yeah.
Right.
But no, that is a great point though, Barry. Dwight, it would be phenomenal to have that at a much better level than what we're talking
Right.
about for the Little Theater come 2026. And I think Paul's kind of working towards there, but we need that constant communication to keep it moving if the town really wants to be there. We can all say we think we should,
Right,
but
but,
there's a lot of work to get us there.
right. So Paul, you're gonna be talking to the building department and the fire department about what would need to happen. You can, show them the report from DRA and say what would you suggest, what would you allow in terms of what we wanna do here?
I'm gonna not answer your question directly based on smaller events. I'll be in constant contact with them in order to make the building viable for its final use. That's my role. Not to,
Right.
but I just don't get involved in the small events, and those are for great volunteer groups and boards and committees, and that's great that people do that. My role is to get the place ready so we can do that if those are allowed.
Well, I think you
Can I
misunderstood
just-
my question. That wasn't really my question. My question was not in terms of the event that might be held in December. I'm talking about in terms of getting the whole building ready in light of the new report that we just received. What does the fire department make of it, and what does the building department make of it, and what kinds of things would they allow, and what kinds of things would they suggest?
Sure,
In terms of
I'm
updates
sorry.
to the building.
Yeah, I apologize. I misunderstood what you meant and
I
didn't
apologize.
interpret that
It's
correctly.
clear on that.
But yeah, of course, I'll be in constant contact with them on, again, whatever we have to do to make the final product viable and open to the public, of course. And again, I'll keep this committee updated on everything. Can I just also mention that, we have applied for 2 other state grants and a federal grant for various rehab projects for the building, which we won't find out these answers. I think the earliest one we'll find out is in October. So again, we are doing everything we can behind the scenes for, free money, if you will, to do everything we can to make this happen. But again, I just want to reiterate, we're not just going to do it just to do it. And also, and I know that this committee knows, just so the public knows, a year and a half ago, this building had no power, no heat, no water. So we have all of those things now. We have a new gas meter, we have a new water meter, we have new water piping, the boiler works, there is heat in there, the lights are on. So we're moving along, not as quickly as everyone would hope, but we are moving along. The roof doesn't leak, all the flashing is fixed. So a lot of the brick has been, the stone, I should say, has been repointed. We still have to do some more, but we have actually done a lot of work. We have put a decent investment into the place. So we have done everything we can with what we have. I just want the public to know that.
Yep, and I appreciate that, and I know that that's a feather in your cap, that you were able to do all that in a building which was really, in really tough shape when we acquired it. Well, just a quick question, when I go to Dave Lurie and kind of give him a nudge about whether he wants to do another December event, is it fair to say that there won't be construction going on between now and then?
If I had to say that right now, I would say that it's fair to say, but it could be, but yes, I would say as of right now, that would be fair to say, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any additional questions for Paul? Thank you, Paul, very helpful. I think we are all on the same page here, and all we can do is keep it moving, and that goal of 2026 is sneaking up on us.
It's real
We'll
quick.
schedule an update for October also.
Yep, that's fair, yep. And again, anything and everything that I find out, I'll let the committee know, and we'll go from there.
That would be
You know,
great.
we'll do it, and, thanks for having me, and I hope I answered all your questions, and we'll keep you informed.
Okay.
Thank you, Paul.
Right, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
That covers our agenda, except for item 16, which is adjourned.
Well, actually, no, we've got to decide whether our next meeting
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
will be held on
already
September
did that
4th or
before,
not,
Paul.
because
Thank you.
Labor Day is 2 days before that, and I don't know if that works for people or not.
Wednesday after Labor Day, or is that a concern
Wednesday after
for
Labor Day
anybody?
makes more sense.
What?
I'm sorry, say that again.
September 4th is the day before Labor Day?
No.
No,
No,
it's
Two
day
days
after.
after.
2 days.
Monday's Labor Day, Wednesday would be the 4th.
I think that's not unreasonable.
That's
We're all
fine
back.
with me.
Everybody gets
Fine
back.
with me.
It's supposed to snow the day after Labor Day, and you have to go to
Yeah,
school,
right.
so we're all here.
Right, or Dawn, any concerns with meeting on 2 days after Labor Day?
No, I think that works for me.
Yeah, okay. Then
Done.
Okay,
we will schedule it for Wednesday, September 4th,
great.
and then we can get to everybody's favorite agenda item and accept a motion.
I move we adjourn.
Good.
Seconded
Second.
by Larice.
Yep,
We'll take a vote. Larice?
yes.
Bob?
Yes.
Yes?
Rich? Dawn?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.